Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason. I'm your host. The name of my podcast is Brand Identity Design, and within that podcast, I have been doing this series called as the dark side of entrepreneurship. So, nothing really scary or nothing about the dark side. It was just a catchy name which I found randomly, and I kind of borrowed it and made it my own. The whole goal is to educate entrepreneurs who are listening to my show, such as yourself, the person next to me, and everybody else who is listening, to teach you about entrepreneurship. Some strategies, some things which can help you with your business, stuff like that. Pretty plain forward and simple. Now, today's topic of discussion is beyond the balance sheet. I've been trying to get a hold of an accountant for a really long time to be on my show because, first of all, I always felt accountants were very boring. Okay, now I wanted to actually get their perspective and find out why people feel those kind of, why people feel about accountants in a certain way. Okay, trying to decode some of those things. Okay, so Derrick, apparently is a long-term listener of my show. And when I was trying to find people from season 5, okay, back in November or December, I think, I was like, oh my God, Derrick is an accountant. He's into bookkeeping and he does a lot of interesting things. Let me ask him if he likes to be on the show. And he said yes. So, Derrick, first of all, thank you so much for accepting my request and being here. I'm going to be dissecting your skill set so that people understand how an accounting brain works. Okay, we would be heading there completely. So, thank you so much for being here. I wanted to give a brief introduction who Derrick is, just in case people who are new. Derrick Espadas, born in East Los Angeles. He overcame early challenges when it comes to shyness and his neurological condition called as CMT, Charcot Marie Tooth, which we would be speaking into later on. Despite of any, some of the academic setbacks he experienced, including struggle with addiction, he found his calling in accounting. Graduating with honors, Derrick earned his BS in accounting and management from the University of Arizona, followed by an MBA from Syracuse University. Now he's also pursuing his doctoral studies at Cape Western University, focusing on title prestige and impact of decision making. A very lovely individual. He resides in Tucson with his wife Brenda and 3 beloved dogs. Okay, now this individual, I can tell you 2 things about him. This guy has style. Okay, now you look at him. Okay, this guy definitely knows how to style. Okay, second, he loves animals to the core. So he has dogs, he has cats, and he's a lovely individual. So nice to have you, Derrick. We should have some applause sound effect, just to cheer you up. Thank you, Derrick, for being here. Let's have some noise, people. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. And I just want to say quick thanks for everyone who showed up. I'm looking into the room and I've seen faces that I just see on LinkedIn. So happy they just kind of stopped by. But I also know Brian and Mario. I haven't seen him forever. Let's get together. These are good people in the room.
Absolutely. I want to shout out to Leslie, Christine, Lourdes. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering your name, but Mario and everyone else who is about to come, etc., etc. Thank you so much, guys, for your love and support. Now, please remember, this is an interactive podcast, so there would be a section. I do allow people to come up on stage, ask questions, stuff like that. So any of you guys, if you don't have a question, if you want to just contribute or even just say hello, you're welcome to come up on stage and just do that, okay? I wouldn't mind at all. So let's actually get into our conversation. Derrick, you're an entrepreneur, you're an accountant. First burning question, okay, which I have been thinking a lot about this. Why do people hate accountants so much, especially people at office? Why is that? Why do we hate you? Tell us.
So there's several reasons, unfortunately. So like in the corporate structure, you usually have the accounting department and finance. So the finance people are the people who are going to tell you about your investments, and they're likely to tell you all the time everything's going to work. We're going to make billions of dollars, no doubt. Everything looks great. And then in the accounting department, because it's part of our job, we run the numbers and we say, no, this does not look good. No, we have to do this. So we're the department of no. just by what we do. And so while the other departments are like, this is a great idea, we're going to do this, this is awesome, we're the ones that we're the rain clouds of the company, and we have to, by law, also present factual information. No one wants the facts. The facts are not fun and they're not interesting. So we're the one that kill the dreams, but we keep you safe. Now, just in general, I mean, I have to admit, most accountants, like, they're dry and they're boring and they just want to talk numbers. And I've been at accounting conferences where I don't want to be there because it's just number, 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 number. And that could have been an email. So a lot of times accountants just don't know how to interact. There is that the reason for the stereotype of like the awkward accountant. And unfortunately, I think in the university, we get no training on how to talk to people, of how to communicate, because it's, hey, you're just going to be behind a computer, which is not true. Like even if you're working at Deloitte or one of the big four accounting firms, you have clients and you have to talk to them. So, but we're not trained, and people who kind of go into accounting a lot of times don't have the social skills. So a lot of times people just don't like us because we're awkward. We don't get the jokes, and we bring you bad news. So it's kind of easy to hate us.
I know. You guys say a lot of no. You bring a lot of bad news. You make a lot of deductions in payroll. You kill most of our dreams. Okay, tell me, how were you able to be different, and how you were able to tackle some of that negative aspect of being an accountant, not the stereotype, but how were you able to
Yeah,
overcome some of those things?
for me, I think it was a lot of just kind of breaking out of my shell. I did spend a lot of my childhood just terrified of everything, really. Like I couldn't even order a pizza because I was so concerned how the person taking the order, what they would be thinking about. So it wasn't like one day I just decided, hey, I'm going to be outgoing and be different than everyone else. It was just my projection in life. And even though I was really kind of reserved, I had this little bit of me that just kind of when I entered the room, I took over. And we were talking earlier, a lot of people don't know this, but I'm actually in punk bands. I'm the singer. I'm out front. I don't stay on stage. I'm going out into the crowd. And then I'm done with my show and I just go quiet. Uh, and so what I learned was I learned how to interact with people. I've been placed in situations where, just as a matter of survival, like I mentioned, like we just can't stay to our computers. We have to interact with people. We have to learn with people. And I think what's really helped for me personally in the last couple of years, and so Brian and I, we both contract for a company where we go teach educators how to communicate empathically. And that actually made a big difference in my accounting because now when I meet with clients, one of the first questions I ask a client is, what is your vision? And it throws them off and they'll talk about their company. And I'm like, no, 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 no. What is your personal life look like in 10 years? Who are you with? What's going on? What car are you driving? And that just became part of what I did. And people kind of just take notice of that. And so now, meeting with a client, we'll talk financials, but then I'll ask them this question that they're not ready for, of where I'll ask them, how are you feeling? And they're like, what? You're my accountant. Why are we talking feelings? Because there's a connection between money and business and how we're feeling. When I was a kid growing up, my parents had a family business and I worked in it. And I knew, even as a kid, I knew when things weren't going well by the mood my father would come home in. And so what we're doing in our businesses and as entrepreneurs comes home. And so I talk feelings with my clients, so that even if they just have a moment of like being able to unload a little, and I can make them feel better. They'll say, hey, I'm not doing this right, this going wrong. And a lot of times what I tell my clients is, you know if you do not believe in yourself right now, just know that I believe in you until you're able to. And they'll just be like, I'm so glad I talked to you. And I'll usually text them back later in the day just saying like, did you ever think you'd say that about your accountant? Like, we don't expect that from our accountants. But that's how so that I can feel good at the end of the day. That's how I want to treat people. I want people to feel good. I have one client, I love it. She says she feels joy in meeting with me because she doesn't want me just to do her book. She wants me to teach her how to do it herself. So she's learning, and she'll end our conversations with, I just feel so much joy. And for me, that lets me, that makes me feel good about what I'm doing. And it makes me feel good. I want to change the world. And usually we don't think as accounting as a way to change the world. But if I do it the way I'm doing it, I can, because I can make people feel good.
You're making it easy for people to love accountants through this process, I think. having having that empathy and asking them about their
Yeah.
vision and having that interaction at a human level, I think it makes a lot of sense, because accountants are so robust and so tight. It sometimes feel like
Yeah.
they don't have emotions, they are just numbers,
Yeah.
black and white. You can't expect them to say anything positive. Okay, stuff like that, But you on the other hand, you decided to go another route. So kudos to you on that, Derek. I really love this. Asking questions like, what is your vision? About, how do you feel? Building those connections. That is super, super cool. I think you want to say something. I'm so sorry if I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh no, no, I'm agreeing with you, agreeing with me.
All right, okay, okay. Since you brought your childhood up, okay, and I want to ask you,
Okay.
you did mention in your bio and in the intake form about growing up in your family business at a very young age. You were involved in tasks like cleaning, welding, managing payrolls, navigating some of the stuff which is happening in your business, in your family business. Did that affect your childhood because of those responsibilities? Did you ever feel like I was not able to, enjoy my childhood and enjoy things the way people of my age would have enjoyed just because of those added things?
I think for me, like it's one of those situations where it gave me a lot of leeway. Like, because I didn't have to be someplace 9 to 5. I could go off and leave in the middle of the day. I could go do things. The funny thing is, my father, like, I would have to work in the office answering phones. My father never takes phone calls. You may have noticed trying to get a hold of me that I've adopted that. Uh, but it's so I could leave. But if I did get that phone call, it meant I had to go in now. It didn't matter if I had concert tickets. It didn't matter if that girl I was trying to get a date with forever finally said yes. I had so much leeway, but when dad said now, it was now. And I don't think I really felt like I lost anything because it was so normal for me. And to be honest, it made me special with because nobody else had a family business. And to be honest, I had more money than most people at my schools. And so I felt special and different in a good way, that I really didn't look at the experience as negative. And definitely, like, now, I just wanted to fit in. I just wanted a job. And I found out I'm a very bad employee. And my father would constantly be saying, start your own business, start your own business. I'm like, no, no, I just want a paycheck. And then I realized, oh, I need to start my own business. I grew up so much in that environment that it's very difficult for me to have a boss now. And I like taking naps in the afternoon too, and you can't do that with a 9 to 5 job.
I'm okay. I love your childhood because you had the most money than other children, and oh my god. Okay, this is super cool. Okay, okay, right. This is really nice. Okay, I'm glad it did not affect you like how things happened with Michael Jackson, because he
Yeah,
used to complain that he lost his childhood because being a part of the entertainment industry. So I'm glad, it did not have an adverse effect on you and you were able to be kind and become the person you have become. I want to ask you more questions related to accounting. Okay, why do you guys hold payroll for a day and sometimes even more? What's the idea behind it? Why can't you just release payments and payrolls for people? Like, we have plans, we have things which we want to do, and why do you jeopardize our plans? What's the reason behind it?
So this is a very central technical accounting. So from the accounting side, since we're not paying everyone daily, we do this account called accounts payable, where we collect everybody's money that we owe them. So accounts payable means we owe you. We have to pay this. And then on one day, whenever that payroll day is, it's a payroll expense. Means we now release that money. Now, depending on how we're releasing that money, whether it's going through the bank, whether it's going through whatever system, like I actually pay people through Zelle now because it's just easier and quicker than going through the bank. Those third parties have their own processing time. And it actually drives me crazy because like a lot of these new ways to pay people, they say it's instantaneously, but it takes 3 days. And for me, 3 days and instantaneous is not the same thing. So it's just these, especially as we move forward into digital payments, the processing from the third party. I go through the same thing with my system for billing. I get a notice that someone made a payment, but I'm not allowed to touch that payment for a week. It doesn't hit my bank. So a lot of the processing for the banks and whatever digital payment methods we're using are holding up the actual payments for you to actually get them. And I know it's frustrating to see like you see a number in your bank account, but you can't use it, and it's very frustrating. So I'm with you. I want my money now.
Okay, so you mean to say it's just the processing and all these
Yeah,
technicalities involved. That's what is delaying it. You're not
yeah.
intentionally keeping and holding that money so that you guys can make some interest out of it, right? So that.
Get that entire 2 cents, huh?
All right, all right. Okay, okay. I hear you. I hear you. Okay. Now you're an accountant. I'm positive you have encountered a lot of cash in your lifetime. What is the largest
Yes.
amount of cash you have ever
Oh,
encountered or handled in person?
so so actually, when I was a child, I would do the bank runs for, and I guess I won't say for who, but we all know who I worked for. But in case the statute of limitations has not run through, a lot of times in construction, there's cash deals because then you're not paying taxes on it. So I would have to go do bank runs of cash. And I remember specifically, so I had a 1961 Ford Falcon was the car I was driving in high school. The locks did not work, the windows did not work. You could get into my car at any time you wanted. I was told to run a couple of errands and then go to the bank. So I'm in the worst part of Los Angeles and I'm just running some errands, can't lock the car, carrying this package that I think it's checks in the package. It's not. It's straight out cash. It's $700,000 in cash that I am driving around with. And I didn't realize that until I got to the bank. And I was driving around in that bad parts of Los Angeles. Car doesn't lock. Like when I, when I found out how much cash it was, like I almost pissed myself because like if I would have lost that, there is no way I could and to family like that. So that's a lot. But I think when I started like working for others, like in the actual accounting department, I just remember being told to write off $10,000 because we couldn't find it. We were just off $10,000. But $10,000 to this company was nothing. So it's just like write it off. And I'm just seriously, we can write off $10,000. And then my next question was, if I find this $10,000, do I get to keep it? Because we would have written it off, so why not? But yeah, that caught me off of just like, yeah, don't worry, it's just $10,000. I'm like, that's to me, that's a lot of money. Like,
That is a lot of money. Did you get the opportunity to count that $700,000? Like
I
count if.
counted about 100,000 of it, and then the bank just put it in the counting machine where they just go through it quickly. On that size of money, they put it through a couple of times just to make sure it's all there.
I always wonder, since people deal with so much cash, are there different methods when it comes to counting? You already named two. One is manually,
Hmm.
second was through a machine, which counts it. Are there any other methods? Like I have heard people who kind of measure, like weigh it, like weigh cash and find out, like, okay, is that true?
It is. So I was working in the accounting department of one of the Goodwill sections. And I one of the things I did was, so the stores, they do their paperwork and then they send it to the main accounting office, and I would just file it. But after a while, just by feeling the packets, I knew if there was something wrong or not. Usually counterfeit bills. And so I would just kind of like hold the packet. I'm like, something's up, and I would find the problem before, the senior accountant who was doing all the data entry would find out the problem just by kind of touching it. Like you would just get a feel for, like, okay, you had a sale this week, but the packet's really thin. It should be thick because it should have all the receipts. And just being able to find things that way, or, just again, the counterfeits. Like for whatever reason, I could just Jedi mind trick and know there was a counterfeit, like $100 bill in the packet. So I think there's something to it. You can't prove it. I think it's one of those things that accountants like to say because for us it's a cool story. Might not be cool for anyone else, but it's one of those things. I've done it where it's just like I can just feel the paper and know the numbers that are in there.
Yeah, I think it's possible that you guys, since you deal with it day in and day out, maybe sometimes when it's off, it is out of just intuition. Like, this doesn't feel right. Maybe because
Yeah.
of that. Okay, so are there any other methods which you guys use apart from, feeling it, weighing it, manually counting it, or using machines? Is there any other method which banks or you would use to count money?
Well, everything is digital now. Like we're just trading numbers. We're not touching anything, any cash or anything. So a lot of times it just flows through the bank system, and QuickBooks or Wave or NetSuite just tells us this is how much went through. So it's money has gotten really weird. It's not money. It's just numbers that we're trading. Like I can just send you $100 through PayPal, and there's no $100 that's actually exchanged. It's just this number that says that. So we usually download everything to Excel, manipulate it that way to count it all up, and no cash has actually changed it.
Yeah, that's really
It's
nice. So that's really
yeah.
cool. I'm so happy that you see businesses here in India where I exist, people do a lot of cash transactions are still active. Some of
Hmm.
them may not be coming from the right mediums. As you know. So that's why a lot of businesses still deal in cash quite a lot, and that is one of the reason I was asking you that. Okay, now let me ask you, when you see all these numbers, okay, virtually or physically, how is that you guys are able to resist the urge from stealing? Maybe, what if I just remove $100? That wouldn't make any difference. I know from an integrity standpoint, you guys don't do it, but what is stopping you? Like, what kind of resistance do you have by seeing that cash and not taking advantage of it?
I think for me, I just don't think about it. Like that just it doesn't really occur for me. Now, a
Just a
lot
second. Just
I
a while back, you said 10,000. If I figure it out, can I keep? Okay,
no,
so I'm just saying.
Your Honor, I don't recall that statement. No. That's after we wrote it off. Then it's free. It's free money after we do that.
Go on, go.
But it happens all the time, and I don't get it. I don't understand it because the amounts too. I think the largest amount I've personally seen stolen is $25,000. But even $25,000, that's a lot. Like to put $25,000 in my pocket right now, good. but I can make so much more over the lifetime of my career that I'm just ruining my career by stealing $25,000. So for me, I just don't think about it. Um, but it is a problem because I get clients from people, or even I'll get a new client, start looking through their books, and I'm like, there's a gap. And we, as accountants, we have a tendency to think that everyone's stealing. We're actually taught to think they stole and then research and realize there's other options that could have happened. But it's always, everything looks fishy to me when I'm looking at someone's books. For me, it's just never been a question, and I think it might go to that relationship portion. Like, it is easier to steal from someone you don't know. It just is. Like, and you can justify it. Like, you can steal something from someone and build in your head how horrible they are, how much they deserve to lose something. But if you built a relationship with a client, now you're stealing from them, and you know their hopes and dreams. You know what they're trying to achieve. So now it becomes harder to steal because you have all that background and history on them. And I think for me, that having gotten kind of like run through my life where it did not run so beautifully, and then get to a point where I'm respected. And I think for me, that is so value, such a value to me that I can talk to people and they're like, no, we trust you. And at first that kind of caught me off guard of like, no, let's do this and this. You shouldn't trust me. But now I'm at a point in my life that people trust me and I believe that I should be trusted. And so to compromise somebody else's hopes and dreams, that just isn't right. That's not something I can justify. Now, if I find $10 on the street, I'm probably keeping it, those things like that. But and there's actually a tax law, and they always use the example. If you find $5 million in a piano you just bought, you have to turn it into the IRS. I'm probably not turning in the $5 million cash that I found in it. So it's not that I'm walking on water, but like I'm not here to destroy other people's dreams. And stealing just seems like something you always get caught. Especially like our job is to track everything. So there's a copy of something somewhere that can get you in trouble. So why take that chance? And I'm amazed so many people do. I hear people say that their bookkeeper stole from them. I'm like, why? Why take $5,000 when you can make 50,000 on someone over the lifetime of your relationship?
Absolutely, and that's what I found so profound. What you said is that you are jeopardizing that relationship just for a few bucks. I mean, if it was such a substantial amount, it makes sense. By those petty bucks, it's not gonna help you reach anywhere. And you also said something which I really admire, that people trust me now, and I have to
Yeah.
be trusted, and I have to continue doing it, and I can't do the silly stuff. Is it fair to say, Derek, that accountants do get paid quite a lot, which is one of the reason why you guys would not think about stealing in the first place? What kind of package are we looking at? If you can disclose maybe a few numbers.
So I've been told that I am underpriced. Um, so like my smallest package for helping out like a solopreneur is 179 a month. I do fractional CFO work where I do charge up to about $8,000 a month. So it really depends on the size of a client and what's involved. I really hate that a lot of times when people do ask about prices, that I have to respond, it depends. Because I hear that from, marketing people I talk to, website designers. Oh, it depends. And it's like, just give me a number. And so that's why I do packages. It's like, look, here's a number. Let's start there. And then as I get into work, let's make adjustments. I have a client now that they're first year, so first year is always struggling. I thought they were going to do better than they did. They didn't. I'm like, look, I'm overcharging you. Let me give you some free months because I thought one thing. Let's go ahead and make this appropriate. And I usually tell people, I just want to be fair to me, and I want to be fair to you. So as long as we can work on that, we can constantly just talk pricing and hey, I'm doing more work this month. It's going to be a little bit more, and they'll just be like, okay. I rarely get into fights over pricing. Now, as far as like your corporate accountants, there is actually a lot of talk going on about salaries. So coming out of business school with an undergraduate degree, people are excited. They get told how much money you can make as an accountant, and they're on the bottom working for about 30 grand, working 80-hour weeks, not making the money they thought they would. And really, depending on what city you're in, like if you're in Los Angeles or New York, like $30,000 a year is not a lot of money to live on. Um, and then when you go up into the senior levels, then you're making that money you thought you would make. When you become a controller, then you're making the $150,000. When you're a CFO, then you're making the $350,000. But it takes a lot of time to work up there, and so you're seeing a lot of people not going to accounting. One, because it's not as exciting as the other disciplines of study, and two, they're not getting the pay they're thinking they're going to get. So there is a shortage of accountants going on right now that of a lot of academics and industry professionals are trying to figure out. And one of the things that's happening is that we're offshoring accounting services. So India is a big place to offshore to, Africa, Brazil, and prices that some of us are having trouble to keep up with. But for myself, I do run into people that say, "Hey, we're gonna go offshore our accounting to India," and I've spoken to people over there, like they're charging like $5 an hour. I can't compete with that, but the quality is different, and not only the quality, but the time zone difference. So if you have a question here in the U.S., it's a little late over there. The holidays are different, which we don't realize because we're very U.S. centric. We think everyone runs the same way we do, and the holidays are different in different countries, and so it becomes different. And so when I do have someone talk that way, I put them into my sales funnel, saying, I'll talk to them in a year, see how they're feeling. And if price is what concerns them, that's awesome. But a lot of times, as a business is growing, the value, that extra service, that being there, that giving that little financial therapy session, that's what people are looking for. And especially moving into the CFO space, they're looking for full service, we need everything done, scenarios.
Interesting. Interesting. I'm so glad that you brought all these things up. And while I'm trying to process everything, I'm thinking, what would be like a typical hierarchy or a career path of an accountant? Is it the same thing which you said? You start off with junior, maybe then move on to senior level, and then you become like a CFO. Is that the process, or are there more stages or
uh,
more roles in between?
Usually there's a controller, position. So a controller is kind of like, the boss of the accounting department. The CFO. So this is one of the things I do talk about people when I am trying to get a CFO, position. Accountants look backwards and now, like we're the recorders. With CFOs, you really want someone who's going to look forward, and you do kind of want someone, in my opinion, that breaks that mold of the stereotypical accountant, because you're doing strategy. You're looking, what are the unusual places that we can find revenue. And even then, so my personal philosophy on like budgeting is, yeah, sometimes we cut costs because they need to be cut costs. But cutting costs isn't the way to find money. Increasing your revenue is. And so instead of thinking about we're going to eliminate this department, let's think of how we can use that department to bring in more revenue, is usually the way I look at it. And so, and then on the other end, kind of starting off, you usually get like an accounting internship. Every undergraduate wants to be at one of the big four, PwC, Deloitte. Actually, we're big three now. Ernest and Young, they're splitting up, so then it will be the big four. So just trying to get in there and trying to figure out, get that experience because it's like a lot of industries. You just have to do that 80-hour week and then try to move up. But it's difficult, especially for someone, and some of my future research that I'm thinking about doing is what happens if you start your career late? Because working 80 hours a week is really good for if you're 23 years old and just kind of starting out, but that doesn't work if you're married and in your 30s. Like, I'm 48, and if I stay up past 8, like I'm happy.
So, okay, this is really cool. Okay, now you brought a lot of interesting things. Okay, and I appreciate you giving us that breakdown. So it starts with internship, junior accountant, senior accountant, controller, and maybe eventually, become a CFO. And CFO's primary goal is to increase revenue. So you guys, on the other hand, are trying to reduce, mitigate risk, trying to cut down
Yeah,
on costs, and CFO on the other hand is trying to how I can bring in more money. So I love all of these
yeah,
things. Okay, let me ask you a personal question. Okay, and this is
yeah.
my experience with my father. If I go to my father, who's also been an accountant for almost 20 years, if I ask him, Dad, give me $20, I need to fill gas. Okay, he would ensure he only gives me $20. There's no buffer. Okay, do your children's do they also experience the same thing when they ask you for something? Are you nitpicking and not keeping a buffer for them and giving them the exact thing they ask? Why is that? I wonder. Do you also do the same thing?
I do the same thing. I try to break out of it. It's very funny. I was just talking about this last night. Oh, look at Rebecca's in there. Hi, Rebecca. I was talking with her. There are certain things that I've learned in my life to treat myself, right? So like I just came back from a trip, and one of the things that I really love to do now is get like a hot lather shave and and a facial. And I think the last time they threw in a haircut, it was $110. I was okay with that. But then I'll be somewhere like I plan all our trips that me and my wife go on, and I'm looking at like dollar difference between hotels. And I'll spend 5 weeks. Like maybe this price will change because I don't want to spend money on it. So I'm very random at it. And but like my wife will come back from doing some grocery shopping, and she'll say like, "Oh my goodness, I had to get this. It was on sale. I saved so much money." I'm like, "You know how you save more money?" And she'll ask me how. Like, you don't buy it at all. And so $0, you don't buy it at all. So I'm very random because I'm learning to take care of myself. And really, the only thing money is good for is spending. Like it has no other purpose. It's to exchange and buy stuff. And so, people are complaining a lot about rising prices of food. I just ordered breakfast for me and my wife today, had it delivered DoorDash, so we paid all the fees, which she used to hate until breakfast magically shows up on our doorstep. We spent $70 on breakfast for two people. I am blessed that I can do that. Like blessed because there was a time in my life where buying a can of Coke was something I couldn't do.
Very
But it's
interesting.
like,
Uh huh. Go ahead.
why would I keep myself from that? Like I can do that and I can still pay my bills. So it's okay for me to order $70 worth. And let me tell you, these pancakes are so good. They're worth $70.
So, the way hearing this, it sounds like, Derek, you have a certain preference in the things which you like spending on and the ones which you
Hmm.
don't like spending on. So,
Yeah.
if there are things
Yeah.
which you like spending on, you don't really care. And the things which you don't like spending on, you're nitpicking, or however you want to say. Like, can I save a
Yes.
buck? Can I don't save a buck? So, it's,
Yeah.
psychologically, I think we all kind of operate in the same scale.
Yeah.
So, but I appreciate you sharing that.
Like
Okay.
I don't have a fancy car, and
Uh,
people will tell me, why don't you get a Beamer or like a Benz? And I'm like, because I don't treat my cars well. Like I treat them all like they're an old pickup, and I just use cars that get me from one place to another. Like I'm not interested in showing off. So yeah, like I'm for if I'm going to buy a car, it's usually because it gets good gas mileage. So I have a little Hyundai Elantra. I do not look like I'm driving around in a fancy. Or kind of since you brought it up, I'd rather spend money on a nice suit because that's what I appreciate, and I don't
Absolutely.
care about the car.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I agree. I agree. This is super cool. This is super cool. Okay, now so let's talk. In terms of accounting and how it helps entrepreneurs. You're an entrepreneur yourself.
Yeah,
You work with
yeah.
small and even larger corporations. Okay, now tell help my listeners understand what are some of the mistakes startups or solopreneurs do, a small or medium sized business does, and what a large corporation does. What are some of the things each
I,
of these sections, each of these type of businesses or levels do as mistakes, so that everybody at some level would be able to
yeah.
get benefit out of what we are discussing. Go ahead.
So I think for the solopreneur, the biggest mistake they make is operating in fear. And I've done this. It took me a while to realize I was an entrepreneur, even though I had businesses. So when I think entrepreneur, I think Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos. I'm just a person trying to make money. And I realized I was an entrepreneur. And so I have the right to ask questions. And I think that's where a lot of solopreneurs get stuck is, you know, really grab me and say, "Hey, can we have a talk? Can I have an hour? Let's talk. I have this idea." And I can tell you, "Okay, yeah, do this, do that." I get excited about other people's projects. Ask questions. Go talk to a marketing person. Go talk to a website person. And websites really get me because I think websites are like our new business card. If I go to a website and it's just like I can tell it's a basic Wix package, eh, all right, whatever. And then I go to the next one and it's bells and whistles and it flows well and it like I'm not thinking about the website. I'm just there, and if you need a website, J Designs. I'm just going to throw that out there. Um, but it's learn these things and don't be afraid. Ask an accountant whether it's me or the super expensive CPA. Say, hey, spend an hour with me, and if they say no, you know they're not the ones that are there for you. And I would also say to start network even before you have that business going. Like find out what's going on, who's out there, because there's so many businesses we don't think about that can help you. And so like one of the things that I'm involved with is selling like legal protection, and it comes in handy when you can't afford a lawyer. So just go and find out, network, find out who's out there, who can help you, and who you can team up with your idea so that you can start referring to each other. As far as a medium business, the thing I see is, I use the example of a baker. So they have a passion for baking, they start baking, and then fortunately business goes well. And then they start hiring. And they never thought anything about how to hire people and the laws. And the worst thing I hear is, oh, but I saw on Facebook. And it's like, no, 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 no. Facebook, horrible source for information. Talk to someone again. Like, and then learn. Like, there's this weird spot too of you wanted to bake. Well, now at some point you have to step away from the baking and let your employees start doing the work because you're a manager now. You're very, and if an employee doesn't show up, you can step in. That's awesome. But your job is not to bake anymore. It's to go out and get business and to make sure the people doing the work are doing it well. And so learning that skill set, because management is a skill. It isn't something that we're born into. It isn't something that, I'm just this natural leader. People will listen to me. I had to learn over my course of growing that the whole yelling at people and demanding things, it unfortunately worked for me, but it wasn't who I wanted to be. And so I had to learn to be a teacher of employees. And then for the large companies, if you do not have a CFO, get a fractional CFO, which is a part-time CFO. get someone in there that knows different things as well too. So I will say maybe not the accountant. And I notice when people are looking for CFOs, they're like, we want an accountant. Yes, there are awesome accountants out there that aren't that stereotypical accountant, but you want someone who's well-rounded, who knows a little bit about marketing, who knows a little bit about operations, who does know about finance, who knows about the industry you're in. And I would say just personally, someone who's passionate about that. So I just finished talking to a company that was looking for a CFO that they run like physical therapies. And I told them, hey, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm interested in this. I'm interested in that. And we met again. Like I was telling them about their business and like places where, like from a customer view, where things could improve. And that's what you kind of want to see is like definitely your CEO is your visionary, but that doesn't mean they should be the only vision. Like I think the larger businesses need multiple visionaries to reach an attainable vision because a vision is just a vision until it becomes reality. And that's really what we want those visions to be. So when I talk to a client about what their vision and they tell me, oh, I want to retire in the Virgin Islands, it's like, okay, what are the steps we're going to take to get you to be retired on the Virgin Islands and to be able to be retired and comfortable and happy? And so having the more ideas and the more inputs really is really going to come up with things that we didn't think about, didn't see, and a lot of times people won't voice an opinion because they're afraid. And so having a group and, even if you're afraid and say, hey, I think we should XYZ, and to have someone else just say, oh, that's a good idea. Then you're like, okay, now I can think of the full plan because I have more confidence in what I'm saying.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with larger corporations. What you said, the founder has a vision, and then you have the CEOs, CFOs, CMOs, CBOs, etc., etc., etc. It's important that you include everyone, just to ensure that we all are reaching for the same thing, and to make sure that we are including everyone also, so that we end up achieving that vision. So I appreciate how you bifurcated it, and I really appreciate how you segmented it for all those businesses which are out there. I wonder, I see the passion when you're explaining about accounting and numbers and all these interesting things. How did you find your calling, your purpose, in numbers? Like, what made you get into this into the first place? Okay, I just wonder, like, tell us, give us a little backstory. What made you get into this?
So I so hate numbers. I hated numbers so much. Um, I was a literature major. Wanted nothing to do with numbers. And then, as you mentioned, I went through a period of addiction. And when I entered recovery and started getting my life together, I did during my period of addiction, I did take a class and then drop out, take a class and drop out. I wasn't accomplishing anything. But then when I got sober, I realized I had to accomplish something. And so I just decided whatever the first class was in the college course catalog, that was going to be what I dedicated myself to. And I remember opening up the catalog and it saying accounting 100. And literally out of my mouth was, oh, fuck. I didn't want it. I didn't want to be an accountant. But then I started taking the classes and it started making sense to me. And not only did it start making sense to me, that almost immediately people were asking me, oh, you're like, people were calling me an accountant. They're like, oh, you're an accountant. Can you help me with this? Oh, you're an accountant. Can you help me with this? And I would just say, yeah, let me see what I can do. And I really liked, having come from a point in my life where no one would talk to me, and they shouldn't have. Like, good for them for setting boundaries. To people coming up to me and saying, I need your help. And so I just kept plugging through. And then, like, I'm kind of known as the math guy, and I teach math, and I love math so much. And one of the reasons I love math so much is I hated it so much. And then when I was taking calculus, I remember everything just making sense. And I remember the professor teaching the class, he would always refer to calculus as elegant. Calculus is where the elegance happens. And I started seeing the elegance. And I developed a passion for numbers. And I started as the more as I allowed myself to love numbers, I could see the stories in numbers. And kind of that idea of like why people hate accountants is because they'll talk numbers. You know, hey, let me ask you a question. Oh, $2,000 means nothing. It's the stories behind the numbers. Like, let me tell you a story. So, and it's, you know, that's where the interest is going to happen. So if I tell you that you're losing $10,000 a month, that's not interesting. But if I tell you that I had a couple that was 10 years behind in taxes, had so much stress on their shoulders that one was living in one state and the other one was living in another, and they were planning a divorce. And they asked me for help. And not even by giving them much help, that I just gave them the tools to start organizing, that it relieved enough stress from the business for them to start talking again and for them to start moving back together again and for them to have a child. And now that when I talk to them, and there's still problems, there's still tons of cleanup to do. They're like, yeah, we know what happened. We're going to get back to what we're good at because they're salespeople. We're going to get back to doing the sales and knowing that you're taking care of it. And like that's more powerful than you're losing $10,000. So remembering that there's people involved these numbers and that we have to take care of the people. The numbers are easy. The numbers will do what I tell them to do. That's why I love numbers now. People don't do what I tell them to do. So just let me handle the numbers. You do what you do best because that's not necessarily where I'm the expert, you know. And I like to talk to people about their business so I can learn more about it. Like if you have a weird business, I'm like, let's sit down. I want to understand this. My wife gets mad because we'll go to a restaurant and she can tell I'm looking, how are the operations going here? How are they meeting margins? What, you know, how, are they overstaffed? I'll be at a restaurant and I'm like, they're overstaffed. Like someone needs to go home. So, but I just love business and I love, you know, what I really love, I love problems. I'm a problem solver. So give me a problem and I will try to fix it because that's where I feel comfortable. Whether it's a math problem, whether it's a business problem, whether it's a personal problem, it's how do I fix this? What's the story behind it? Because the story is really, and that's one of the reasons I ask, you know, new clients about their vision. They think their problem is one thing. I want them to talk so I can find out what the real problem is. Because in the story I just told, the problem wasn't the business. The business disappears. You know, they're salespeople. They'll find another job. The problem was the family falling. That's what had to be addressed. And once the stress of the business could just be reduced, not eliminated, let's just give options here. They were able to focus on fixing the family. And that's what I love being a part of. Like and not being the one to fix that, but just be a part of it that they could fix it on. That's like if we weren't on this podcast, I'd be like tearing up and crying. But I gotta pretend to be a tough guy.
Derek, that is so, so cool. And I appreciate you sharing all of those important things. You know, I certainly appreciate that. I think it's about time that we take a quick break and we will come back because I have some more interesting questions which I want to ask you. Some of those things from your bio, you speak about resilience. I want to actually know what is there. So let's actually take a quick break. I'm also thirsty. I'm going to have a sip of water while we are on break. I hope you guys also do the same thing. Okay, let's have some music uh, while we are in break. Guys, I want to let you know that just in case if you have not followed my podcast yet, it really helps with the analytics. It also helps me to get the exposure my guests and I so deserve. The links to my podcast is being mentioned under the show notes or event comments. You should be able to find those links. It will not even take you a second. Click on those links, go on Spotify or Apple, look up brand identity design, and you should be able to find my beautiful picture. Follow it, listen to some of the previous episodes. It does help. I also need your blessings because I have applied for 2 awards this year. And if I win, nothing like it. If I don't win, nothing like it too. We'll still continue the grind. We'll have more and more interesting people on my show, and I'm gonna ask them silly, interesting, or unique, or whatever questions I feel like asking, and we'll go with the flow. Back to the interview, Derrick. Thank you so much for your patience. My next question is about resilience. Okay, now when I was going through your bio, you specifically mentioned there were instances wherein your resilience was really tested in your career. How did you navigate through it?
So I'm just of the personality that I think I'm pretty easygoing. But if you start challenging me on something and I really don't believe in what you're challenging, or I believe more in what I just believe I'm really certain, I'm willing to push forward. And in a lot of systems, people aren't used to that. That's why I don't fit into the corporate world, because it's usually like, yes, yes, sir, that's brilliant, and I'm like, no, that's a horrible idea. Why would you do? Have you? And I also have a tendency to start asking, well, did you ask the people that affects? And they're like, what? No, they'll love it. How do you know? Like you, you want an 7-day work week. Oh, they'll love it. No, they won't. Talk to them. And so I just kind of learned too as I got older that no one's as scary as they like to make it seem. So when it comes to me like opening my mouth, the worst you can do is say for me to shut up. And that just doesn't affect me. Or like if you're gonna yell at me, I know there's people that they try to intimidate by yelling, and it's like you're just yelling. Like that's not scary. Hey, I'm gonna hit you. I can take a really good punch. Like whatever you need, like there's nothing you can do to me. And that just took time in life to realize that like things that we think are scary aren't. Um, I was actually just listening to a podcast on fear, and he says there's two kinds of fear. There's primal fear. So hey, you're walking down the street and there's a tiger. Yes, be scared, get out of there, because a tiger can kill you. And then there's everything else that we just make up in our heads. So like I mentioned, when I was younger, I couldn't order a pizza on the phone. That's how old I am too. We had to call in. That's all imagined in my head. Like the person making fun of me, this is going to go wrong. That's all in my head. And so I through experience, I learned those things aren't going to happen. And one of the things I also learned when I was, you know, the early stages of my addiction recovery, my sponsor told me, you know, girlfriend leaves you. What a wonderful opportunity to find someone better. You lose your job. What a wonderful opportunity to find what you really suited for. It's just everything's a wonderful opportunity. And so for me, resilience is just not accepting things, because there's unacceptable things, but just not breaking down, realizing that there is a day tomorrow. And I remember being, 20, and the girlfriend leaves and just thinking it was the end of the world, and thinking, this is going to be the horrible feeling forever. But like as I got older, I realized that like eternity is not for like there'll be another girl, there'll be another opportunity. We just do the best we can each day. I think what goes along with resilience, because I don't like some of the talk around it now, where it's like everyone should be resilient, and I believe resilience is important, but we should also make things easier for people. Like I don't have to make your life horrible just to prove how strong you are. If I see you're having a bad day, I can go and give you a hug. There's a little calendar I follow every day. It does a action of happiness. Today was, if I find myself or someone else rushing, kind of just remind people to slow down. And so that's the focus. And for me, that's resilience isn't entirely the hey, you should just suck it up and be happy. Resilience is also me being there for someone and adjusting to what they need. Because normally I want to, hey, let me give you these facts and then walk away. You should be better. And really is, okay, you don't need to be lectured at. What do you need? And a lot of times what people need is just to talk through something. And so a lot of times my job is to be quiet and just nod my head and just say, there's a video clip from Brene Brown on empathy. And I learned a line from that clip because I don't know how to react when someone is having difficulty in their life. And so I just say the line from that video of like, I don't know what to say, but I'm so glad you told me. And then just let them talk. And I kind of joke around, not meaning that, if you haven't noticed, I joke around a lot. I just tell them, hey, it's okay to get an ice cream. Ice cream solves everything.
I love both of these things which you shared by Brene Brown and the ice cream part. I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna be borrowing this and I'm gonna use it.
Yes.
Yes, I think it does make a lot of sense. And I appreciate the fact that you spoke about resilience so much. It's not about sucking it up. It's sometimes it's just to be there for the opposite person and see what their needs are and prioritize those things and help them out as much as you can. At the end of the day, we are
Yeah.
human beings, right? We are here to help each other out and not just saving our own ass, right? Just be kind
Yeah.
to one another. This is super cool. I appreciate you sharing that, Derek. I want to ask you a funny question, though. Okay, out of all these,
Okay.
huge things which we were discussing, for the past 20 minutes, I want to ask you: Do accountants have like a favorite brand of calculator you guys like the most out of all the others, or pretty much you can play around with any calculator, and you should be okay. Any specific?
So
Go ahead.
most accountants like a 10 key format. But for me, 10 keys are out of date. Um, they were super awesome in 1980. Not a big deal now. But I actually have an answer to your question, which I don't know if that makes me cool or sad. But it's a TI-84 Texas Instrument TI-84, of which is only 2% of their business, but it carries their silicon chip in it. And it is just a great little calculator, does graphing. Um, and I still have mine around,
It looks
even
very
though a lot of stuff
compact though. It's not that huge. I thought it's gonna be a huge one. It looks very compact.
it they've made them smaller. And so I've actually had the opportunity to go to Texas Instrument and see their facilities, and they have an Emmy.
They have an Emmy?
Yeah, the corporation has an Emmy
Oh,
um, because of the silicon chip they made for one of the new fancy TVs. They won an Emmy for it
oh my
because it
god.
makes the TV watching experience so much more.
What's so
So
unique about this calculator? It has graphs. It has a lot of things. Like I don't even know if I would be able to use it. Like, what makes it so different?
so it does the super like hard stuff so I describe it as the squiggly lines. So you can do the squiggly line stuff and tangents and cosines, and you can build like a 20-mile long equation, which you're probably hearing I love. Um, and so it isn't the typical functions that you get on a regular calculator. You can do all kinds of things on it. You can actually program it. And they use it at NASA. So, it has to be cool, right?
Yeah, it has to be.
Astronauts use it.
All right, all right. Okay, so guys, if you're listening to it, okay, do search TI, T for Tango, I for India, 84. Uh, calculator, and I think you should be able to find images for this, and I think it looks super cool. I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, let's have
Yeah.
some fun.
And
Okay.
so
Uh-huh.
my wife has one and I have one, and they're actually named after, we named our calculators after our math teachers who we found out were dating each other. So it's Kurt and Kylie are our calculators.
Kirk and what? Kylie.
Kylie, yes.
Okay. You named your calculators. Okay,
We
wow.
named them, and they sit together when we're not using them. They sit together on the shelf.
That is super cool. I'm so glad you personalized it. I love personalizing my things too. So this is super cool. Okay, I want to ask you, about the genetic neurological condition, uh, Charcot Marie Tooth. Okay, first of all, it's a funny name. Okay, no disrespect there.
Yeah,
Okay, it took me a while just to process and just to make sure I say it correctly. Okay, and now you educated me. The people who discover it, so such conditions are actually named after them. So it makes so much sense. It's also known as CMT. For
yeah.
people who don't understand this condition, would you mind explaining what this is? Okay, and how was your recovery process like? Or have you recovered? Do you still have it? How do you manage it? Stuff like that.
Yeah. So essentially, if you think of your nerves, they have a coating. So it's just like electrical wire. So it's to make sure that the the electricity that our body conducts goes all the way. In Charcot Marie Tooth, we have too much, and it's not pretty, like a nice wire. It's like someone messed up. So at least for myself, from my elbows down and my knees down, the nerves, the messages don't go through. And what that makes happen is it makes the muscles break down. So the muscles in my hands and my feet are very weak. In my feet, almost non-existent. And so, it's I just bought new braces and realized I ordered the braces for the same foot. So I have two right foot braces. I need to return those. I, it has a lot to do with kind of my insecurity as a child because, there was always something different about the way I move. Again, as I got older, since people when they were older just had more things going on physically, like people didn't care. Or I even remember a bandmate of mine one day said, you realize that makes you badass. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, the fact that you're on stage and you don't let anything stop you. And he's like, that's amazing. I'm like, oh, huh. I didn't think about that because I always thought of it as my limitation. Now, as I got older too, because when I do walk, it's it's you never know what's going to happen. And so I'm always planning like 50 different things just walking across the room. Well, what that's built into me now is if you ask me a question, I've already thought about the 50 different things. So I'm pretty quick at solving those problems because it's what I do on a normal basis. And it's actually my next project is actually starting a disability chamber of commerce because people with disabilities face challenges and problems every day and have to solve them. So who better to become entrepreneurs than people who have to problem solve it every day and just applying those problem solving skills toward business and entrepreneurship. It's something I'm still working through right now. It's a progressive disease, so it's gotten worse. It will continue to get worse. Um, but my wife and I were on a trip up in the redwoods in California, and when we were done, she said, "You realize you were the only one trying to hike." I was trying to hike up this hill that I kept falling down, and I was like, after about falling and like really falling down, after about 5 times, I'm like, I'm done. And she's like, "You're the only one in this whole park that was even thinking of hiking. You just do things and you don't let things stop you." And I'm like, "That's just how I feel. Like, if I want to hike, I'm going to hike." She's like, "But you don't realize that everyone, even if they're in good physical shape, doesn't do that. They'd be on the couch watching TV." And so I'm like, that's just what's come out of me. And that's what I'll keep doing. I'm being a little bit more responsible and saying, hey, that I can't do that, or I need someone to help me. One of my goals is to do one of those Spartan races, but I want to put together a team, and mainly the team of people to like help me over the physical things, but who want to be involved. And so that's a goal. I do play wheelchair basketball to try to stay in shape, and it's a great community. But and I'll be speaking on April 23rd at Oro Valley Park on this topic on a organization that fundraises for this disease. I've just always had in my head that I don't want to be sitting on a couch somewhere. There's too much of this world out there that's awesome. And I'll go see it. I'm going to see all of it. I'll be in India. Get ready. I'm going to stay at your place, Jason.
I would so love to meet you in person, Derek, and that would be super cool. This is super cool, Derek. So many good things which you said, and so many good things which you're about to do. I'm so glad you're keeping the TI calculator aside, and you're like, let's go hiking, let's do some shit, let's have some fun. So that I think that charisma of you believing in your potential and not limiting yourself out of what condition you have, that is really brave. So I have to applaud you on that. would
Thank you.
you would you give people the same advice that people who are listening, who kind of reject themselves from opportunities because they think their condition kind of becomes a roadblock? Would you say the same thing to those individuals also? I think you do, right?
Yeah, like do follow your heart. So in all of us, we just, regardless of what condition we are, we're we have dreams. Like, and yeah, if you sometimes we have to modify the dreams, and that's okay. That's perfectly okay. But if whatever your dream is, and if your dream is not huge, like that's not bad. Have your dream and just do it. Find a way. Ask for help. I think for me that's the biggest thing. As I travel the country a lot, I notice people are like, "Can I help you?" And I just say no. And I've started to learn of like, you know what? You want to push me through the airport? Let's do it. And I'll talk to them. And so I meet a new person. And it's just allowing, for me, it's been letting people help me and not feeling that shame of, oh no, I got to do it myself. Hey, let me let you, because, we've talked about this. We're telling people to go do good, but what good can they do if I'm telling them, no, don't help me? So part of my service is being, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And telling people I appreciate them. And if I don't need the help, I tell them I appreciate, I will. I appreciate you offering your help. I thank you for that. Just to spread that out there and allow people to be of service.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you gradually have become the yes man. Do you remember that movie by Jim Carrey? Yes man.
Yes.
Okay. So this is lovely. Okay, let me ask you, Derek. Do you want to be known as a guy who is into the business of numbers? Or do you think you want to leave some sort of another legacy for people who have interacted with you, who have met you in person? What kind of a legacy do you want to leave? I'm just wondering.
I want to leave the legacy of just, he was a good guy, because I think a lot of my life I didn't feel like it, and there's definitely been parts of my life where I was not the good guy, and I just want people to think, yeah, I wish he was still around. And so I actually have my funeral planned out. I don't know if you want to hear my funeral plans.
Yeah, I mean, since we are here, we might as well hear it. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
So imagine just a dirty club, right? I want punk bands playing. I want my casket there. I want markers there so people can graffiti the casket and my body. And at some point in the night, and I've told people this plan, someone is to steal my body so that no one knows where it is and just hide it somewhere in the city.
Oh, like Steve
My
Jobs.
graffiti.
I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's just, so that's either that, or the other plan is just to build a catapult and launch my body into someone's backyard so they find me. So one of those two things. Those are my end of life plans.
I love your creative thinking. This is super cool. Let's have some fun. I'm gonna ask some funny questions. Okay, now people who are actually on
All right.
stage, the remaining four people who are listening, Leslie, I love you. Thank you so much for being here. Cass, thank you so much. She's also a close friend of ours who is also a regular listener, and she was a guest on my show previously too. Mario and Mike. Mike has been a regular follower. He attends most of my events. At least he says yes to attend. So thank you so much, Mike. I do pay attention to the things which people do, and thank you. Thank you guys for being here. If you'd like to come up on stage and have some fun, because I'm going to be having some fun before we wrap up today's interview, please do not hesitate to come up. Okay, so let's have some sound effects first of all. Let's have some. All right, so I'm going to ask you.
I just want to correct you. You said 4 people. There's actually 40 people here.
Huh? Are you? Okay. There are?
You got to make it sound big.
Oh, yes. 400. Why 40?
400.
400. So thank you so much for all the whole 400 listeners. I appreciate you making this as a bang. Okay, let's have some fun. Rapid fire questions. Take about
all right,
maybe 5 seconds to answer it. Okay. Or maybe 10 seconds. Okay, so now somebody recommended me, I should have some sound effects, when we are doing this, like a countdown thing. I'm going to see if I can do that, okay? So first question, what's the most bizarre expense you have ever encountered?
Goats.
What was that? Goats?
Goats, yes.
Goats. Tell me about it. I would really like to know.
So goats are actually depreciated at a 7-year term. So depreciating goats, and they use the goats to eat the grass to preserve their solar panels. Totally legit.
Oh, shit.
Depreciating goats.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next question. Is there an accounting jargon you want to be banned for a day? And if yes, what term would you eliminate first?
I would eliminate goodwill.
All right.
Because goodwill is an easy place for large corporations to move money.
Oh, you mean when you say goodwill as in promo stuff, promotional items which does not cost anything, those kind of stuff?
Goodwill in accounting terms is the amount paid above value. So if let's say I bought your podcast and we valued your podcast at $500,000, and I paid you $1.5 million, not necessarily in cash, okay, I can now claim I have $1.5 million on my books.
Interesting.
And there's ways around it. Yeah,
wow.
It's a good way to move money around.
Okay, I will keep that in mind. If I hear any accountant saying goodwill, okay, I would be cautious.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, next. What is your go-to stress relief activity during tax season?
Sex.
I want to make the buzzer sound. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this podcast would agree with me. That would be a nice activity to relieve some of the stress during tax season. Yes. Okay, lovely. Okay, what is the funniest accounting-related joke you know?
So whenever I do presentations, I always tell an accounting joke. I always say they're not necessarily funny, but they are jokes. So how does a pirate file their taxes? On a Schedule C. Yeah. So technically a joke, not necessarily fun.
Well, it makes sense, I love your humor. Okay, this is super cool. Okay, next. If you're accounting software, okay, and you named a few softwares, during our conversation. If any of those softwares could talk, what is the first thing do you think it would say to an accountant?
So I usually badmouth QuickBooks. And so I think my QuickBooks program would say, well, you're fucked up too.
Okay, okay, okay. That is super cool. Okay, now if let's assume that if the United States of America decides that we are not actually offering accountants the respect they deserve, and they decide to come up with like an accounting holiday, one day dedicated to you folks. Okay, how would you guys celebrate it? What would you do?
We're probably still working. We probably don't know what to do. Or, like, I'm just imagining like zombie apocalypse. Like all the buildings are closed, but we're wandering around with our calculators, just going like, what do we do? What, what do you mean a day off? We don't do this.
So no day off for
No day
accountants.
off.
So maybe the holiday would be about no day for accountants. Do extra work.
Do yes, that's yeah, that's called tax season.
All right. Okay. Last question. Okay.
All
Have you heard about any rumors, wild rumors about accountants?
right. No, not a one. No, no. I would love to. So just so you know, there is an accounting hall of fame.
Okay. Tell me more about this. This is really cool.
I,
Accounting Hall of Fame. Okay. Do you guys get
that
the?
people get
Uh huh.
they get voted in to this accounting hall of fame, and that is something I don't want, because that means uh, that just sounds sad to me. Like it doesn't sound like an honor. Like it sounds like you didn't do anything with your life, but accounting.
Mm, interesting. Do you guys ever apply for any awards, anything of that sort?
Um, there's not really anything. I mean, there's even in the accounting organizations, awards aren't a big thing. We're pretty
I think it's
quiet.
more like the work speaks for itself, something of that sort.
You didn't get arrested. Congratulations.
You're awesome, my friend. You're awesome.
Is someone laughing in the background?
No, that's a sound effect. That's a sound effect.
Oh, okay.
Just makes it easy. Sometimes, I get tired laughing, so I use a sound effect just to make it easy.
Oh,
Okay, so tell me about supportingstrategies.com, and you manage the Tucson, Arizona one.
yeah,
So
yeah.
tell us a bit
So
more. And you guys have so many locations. It's just not in Arizona. It's around the U.S. I have seen so
yeah,
many cities listed. How do you manage all of this?
so they're not all me. I just manage the Tucson one. It's a franchise based out of Boston, that I bought into, because it just kind of easier that way. They provide a lot of support, which is nice. One of the things that's great about it is if I do get overwhelmed, instead of having to look for someone to hire, I can find someone in another office who's already trained that's looking for more hours. So every Monday they send out a report of people who just want to make extra money. And so instead of going through the process of hiring someone, realize they lied, firing them, hiring someone, you just reach out to the Ohio office and say, hey, I saw that Hilda wants an extra 10 hours. I have some projects that they can work on. They log in, they take care of it. So it's really great to be able to be part of a system like that. But we help everyone, uh, from the solopreneur to usually about 50 employees. I get ambitious and every once in a while put in bids for 100 employee companies. Um, but we're just, and as we talked about earlier, like everyone has different needs, and so just being open to what those needs are. Our sweet spot right now, I would say the most clients we have are in the nonprofit space, just because I've been in that background. I know some of the weird accounting in what we call fund accounting, which is what nonprofits do. And it just, again, like it just makes me feel good. Like I like being part of something that's making a difference. And for-profit companies do that too. I think we a lot of times we kind of bash for-profit companies, but there's there's a lot of good people out there. And that's what makes my job easy, is that really there's a lot of good people out there that want to make a difference, and we're just having to find each other and realize that there's a lot more good people than bad.
Absolutely. I love what you are doing. I don't know if it was just me, but I was hearing this clap noise when you were saying all those things. Like, okay, so I.
Just getting a little beat going. I thought you were gonna drop some bars, do a little rap for us.
Okay, but this is super cool. So guys, if you want to reach out to Derrick, obviously on LinkedIn I have all the links mentioned under the event details, like links to his website. I think there are two websites. One is Supporting Strategies, the Tucson one, and the second one is the chloeprep.org, right?
Yeah,
That's a nonprofit which you were
yeah.
referring to, right?
So that's a school I opened up
Uh-huh.
because I was teaching and the experience was not good, and so a principal one day said, "If you think you could do better, go do it yourself." And I'm the wrong person to say that to, so I started my own school where we try to teach kids instead of just babysit them.
I'm so happy that you took that opportunity. I think people can learn actually a lot from you, just from the last thing which you just said in terms of saying yes. A lot of times we don't say yes to many of the opportunities which comes to us, right?
Yeah,
We have things in place, we have our defense mechanism, and we are sometimes fearful, and we don't say yes to many of those things. You never know what the future would unfold into once you say yes to it. Out of fear, I have said no to many things. Okay, but I think, Derrick, you're an inspiration for people who are saying no. I think you have to be the yes guy, the yes man. And I think that really makes a huge difference. And I appreciate you sharing your story. If there is one thing apart from the yes man thing you want people to take away from this conversation, the whole thing which we just had, what else would that be?
I would say just go out
And you know what,
and be
Derek,
you.
I didn't mean to cut you back there, but
Yeah,
I seriously think, it might be something rubbing against your headphones, but the mic is picking up something, it's clashing and I can hear some noise.
I heard that too. So I think it might just be the headphones. I'm
Uh,
holding still.
okay, go ahead. Let's hear it.
I just think people should go out and be who they are. Um, and I like the quote that my undergraduate business professor told me, Dr. Oliver Schilke said, the secret to management is make money and don't be a jerk. Everything else is details.
I love this quote. I think I saw this on your bio as well. Do make money, but don't be a jerk. Okay, which is
Yeah.
super, super cool. I want to let people know, thank you so much for all the 400 people listening to this conversation. Thank you so much for being here. I want to quickly educate you on our next week's show. We would be speaking with Dr. Shireen Malouf, and we would be speaking about overriding the monkey mind. Somebody actually commented on that event. Somebody said that, why do you have a picture of a gorilla when you are speaking about the monkey mind? And I was kind enough to let the opposite person know, this individual know, that I could not find a good picture of a monkey facing left. So I had to go with the gorilla. So, anyways, please check out that event. I have it under the show notes, or this specific event. You should be able to find it. If you're on LinkedIn, if you can't find the event link, it's also featured. It's also under the featured section. I think it's going to be an awesome conversation. You guys will really enjoy it, like the one which you just had right now with Derrick. Thank you so much, Derrick. You are awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity
Thank
to be
you.
here. This has been an absolutely amazing conversation. I'll have everything uploaded today itself, and I'll send send you guys the links. So if you want to go back and check out some of the replay, it's gonna be there. So thank you, people, once again. Have an amazing morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're in the world. Have a nice day, whatever, and be the yes person. Be the guy or the girl or others who say yes to opportunities.